So can everyone hear me okay? Yeah. Good, thumbs up from the back there. Okay, so we are groups of designers and we are groups of developers, and yet we all have one thing in common. We are all problem solvers. Now, before I'd like to get into that, I'd like to ask everyone to hold their breath for 5 seconds. Okay, are you ready? And work with me. Ready? And go. Great, okay, you can breathe normally now. You just all consciously thought about holding your breath. Now, when you start listening to my talk, you'll soon forget about your breathing and your subconscious will kick in again. Now, why did I just make you do that? Well, numerous cognitive neuroscientists, have conducted studies which have revealed that only 5% of our cognitive activities are conscious, whereas the remaining 95% are subconscious. So let's start by identifying the difference between the two. Consciousness, which is our ability to use logic and reasoning, and subconscious for emotions, breathing, beliefs and memories. So, if such a huge proportion is generated by our subconscious, why are we not more conscious of it? Before we answer that question, I'd like to explain why this is even a discussion point. I've lost count of how many adverts I've seen telling us to go to the gym to get fit after getting fat during the Christmas period. In the world of media, our minds get less attention. As a result, we are subconsciously more conscious about the fitness levels of our body than we are of our minds. And yet, we use our minds every day, and we live in an age where we are continuously being pushed to be ever more efficient. Let's put this into the context of design and development. The majority of the time, we use our minds continuously in output mode for roughly 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 160 hours a month, and 1,920 hours a year. So all of this conscious thinking is supposed to be squeezed out of this tiny 5%. I thought, something doesn't sound right here. Surely we need to make better use of our subconscious. I mean, apparently we have 95% to play with, right? So I set about understanding our subconscious more. If we need to make better use of it, we need to have a better understanding of how it works. When we are problem solving, research shows that there is a pattern in what happens before we reach that eureka moment. Articles in neuroscience speak about participants repeatedly going through something like this 3-step process. First, they get a period of frustration where they may have given up on trying to solve a problem. Then, with no warning, they got a shot of positivity. And finally, they got this sense of certainty where they had this breakthrough moment, whether they had got the answer. And this cycle was then repeated. What researchers found is that if a participant remains in a state of frustration, then they would continue to stay in this cycle, never reaching that ultimate aha moment. The reason for this is because when the brain goes into threat state, it gets nowhere. If you're in a calm state, your mind is able to pick up on numerous solutions more easily. High levels of anxiety create a lot of noise in the brain and inhibit our ability to have and hear creative insights. My experiences over the years mean I've managed to find a way to keep my stress levels low and more constant when under pressure. Now I've found evidence that this actually helps to keep ideas flowing. So, how can we remind ourselves to keep our stress levels more steady? Using my knowledge, research and experience, I'm going to explore 3 ways in which I have come up with that we can do this a little more easily at work. Number 1, as a quick fix, all it takes is 30 seconds. Even if you get away from the task for just 30 seconds and then get back to it, evidence shows that this can increase the likelihood of getting through to the other side. The usual thinking of sleep on it, read a book, or do another activity doesn't necessarily have to be time consuming if you have little time left. Number 2, you could train your mind to work more collaboratively with your subconscious. So what on earth do I mean by that? Well, my idea is to retrain our problem solving cycle. So as a reminder, this is what our current cycle looks like. And the 3 things that we know from this cycle are that if we get frustrated, we put our minds into threat state. So we could potentially stop ourselves before we reach that frustrated period. If we stay in this state, we're even more unlikely to reach that solution. So we could create a calm environment. And finally, we usually get a boost of positivity before we reach that eureka moment. So could we do something that we enjoy in order to encourage positive emotions? Now, I believe that this part here is the most important part of the problem-solving cycle. And this is where we need a boost of positivity before we suddenly get that shiny solution. And this is the reason why. Decision making happens in the limbic part of the brain. And this is the same part which is most closely linked to emotion. So here are two ideas I would like to suggest. First, do an activity which encourages us to feel more positivity before we hit that wall of frustration, so we could increase our likelihood of coming through with a wider range of solutions. Number two, you could research an area which is indirectly related to your subject. So we could potentially open our minds to make further connections between seemingly disparate phenomena. As Einstein said, you cannot solve a problem using the same consciousness that created it. So let's put that into a real scenario. Here's an example that I may use. So for example, let's just say I've been brainstorming an idea for a new app to help people make unanimous decisions within their community. I brainstorm this for 5 minutes and then stop before I get frustrated. Then I research something new, but something which I genuinely enjoy to increase my feelings of positivity. I love nature, so I could go away and research how creatures communicate within their own groups. For example, I could look deeper into how bees communicate. Now, they do a waggle dance, and when the majority of the other bees communicate with each other, they are able to reach a unanimous decision between them. So they will do a waggle dance, and once enough of the bees all do the same unanimous dance, they can reach that decision as to where they can find their next home. So I could use this idea from nature, and this could inspire my next concept to create an app, which means the majority of users within the community must make their phone buzz and make a unanimous decision before a decision can be made. By researching nature, which I enjoy, I was able to boost my levels of positivity, and by researching communication in bee colonies, which is indirectly related to my community app, I was able to make connections between seemingly disparate phenomena much quicker. Now the point is we need a subject which we are emotionally attached to in order to trigger the decision-making part of our brain. And finally, my last tip, which is, could you fit your subconscious into your daily routine? It is well known that the best ideas come when we least expect it. That's because our subconscious has been ticking away in the background and is then triggered by an emotional memory. If we can train our minds to include this time lapse into our project work, could we make better use of it? We need to remind ourselves to allow a minimum of roughly 8 hours from the moment we begin to tackle a problem before we can use our subconscious. Here's a good trick I use to help me get into a good pattern. Imagine your subconscious is your colleague who is based in the States. So your subconscious is going to be 8 hours behind. So work with me here. Imagine you're at work and you've got a new project, you've got your brief or your allocated tasks, and now you're using your conscious mind to come up with some immediate solutions using logic and reasoning. You scribble away or you furiously type in some code for 20 minutes. Now, you don't want to exhaust your conscious mind. Remember, it is thought that we only have 5% of it to play with, which means your conscious mind has limited willpower. So you need to call backup, but your backup subconscious is in the States, so you need to wait for her to wake up before you can use her amazing 95% of power. So it could be a case of doing tasks which require a fresh perspective of logic and reasoning in the morning, as these are areas which require more conscious thought. Then, later in the day, you can revisit them once you are ready for your subconscious to wake up. If you are able to remind yourself of this and fit this mindset into your daily routine, you will already have managed your own expectations of how long it could take for your subconscious to aid your thinking. Meaning, in theory, you should be less frustrated if a solution doesn't come straight away. By doing so, you are reducing the pressure on yourselves to come up with solutions immediately. In effect, you are creating a calm environment for your mind to think away. Of course, with deadlines, this isn't always possible. However, if you can implement this into your long-term personal working strategy, you could help reduce your stress levels and get better results in the long run. So, in conclusion, I've identified 3 areas which can be tested in your everyday work to make better use of your subconscious. You may do some of this already, but these are 3 little reminders to inspire you when you get caught up in everyday work. So, as a reminder, number 1, remove yourself from the task for just 30 seconds. Number 2, do an activity you enjoy in between to increase your levels of positivity and to find inspiration. And finally, imagine your subconscious is in the States. All 3 concepts aim to reduce your stress levels, and in effect, I hope you are able to make better use of your subconscious. If in doubt, remind yourself by holding your breath. I'm always curious, so if you ever find yourself using these at work, I'd really like to hear if they work out for you. Please tweet me and tell me if they do. Thank you.